Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Handful of Daisies DIY. If you're new here, I'm Elaine. Thanks so much for stopping by today. It is a beautiful Memorial Day weekend, and we're going to start it off by working on a furniture piece. So we're going to be in the workshop today. The furniture piece needs a few repairs, and then we're going to get it painted. So if that's something you're interested in, meet me in the garage and let's get to it. Here's a look at the piece we're going to be working on today. It has seen better days. It's pretty scratched up. The knobs are broken. The bottom drawer is missing a piece, and the very bottom has broken off. So we're going to repair all that. We're going to start off by just taking the pulls off. And since they're broken, we're going to replace those. Now for the bottom piece, I did use my wood glue and clamp that down. I'm going to let that dry really well. And for that bottom drawer, I did use quick wood just to reconstruct that top piece. And I'll go back and sand that down. So I'm going to start on the top. This is a solid wood piece, so I'm able to sand all of the scratches out. I'm using my orbital sander with the 120 grit sandpaper, and it's taken it off pretty well. This piece was pretty dried out, so the top coat was pretty much gone, which made it a lot easier to sand. I picked up this orbital sander at Lowe's, and it was really inexpensive, so you don't have to have expensive tools to refinish a piece. This was just a really quick weekend flip. If you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that if there's a chance I can save the top and just stain the top, I do try to do that so I can leave a little bit of the wood there. Sorry for the noise in the background. My husband is weed eating today, of course, when I'm trying to video. Once I finished up the top, I did scuff sand all around the body. Then I'm taking my cloth and just getting all the dust off. Then I'm going to move to the drawers, and I'm going to sand just that top flat facing on the drawers all the way down to the wood, because I'm going to stain just that flat part as well. Again, using 120 grit sandpaper. And I do have my sander hooked to my shop vac as well. That way it keeps a lot of the dust out. Here's a look at the drawers when they were sanded. Now, of course, I'm using my go-to, my Waverly Antiquing Wax. I have mixed it with water and then a little bit of black Waverly ink chalk paint as well. The Waverly Antiquing Wax tends to be a little red tone, so the black does tone that down a little bit. Now normally when I have dry wood like this, I would wet it down first, and I should have done that because it was soaking this in pretty quickly. So it was a little bit harder to put on. So if you have dry wood, just water it down, spritz it down a little bit first before you start to put your stain, or if you're using antiquing wax. I like the antiquing wax just because it doesn't have that smell. I'm finishing up the top, and then I'm going to do the same thing to the fronts of the drawers as well. Here's a look at how the top turned out. Now I know this piece is going to bleed on me, so I'm using Shellac by Zinsser. It is clear in the spray. So I'm going to spray the whole base down with a good coat, and then I'm going to let that dry before we start painting. So to paint this piece, I'm using Dixie Belle in Fluff. It is a really bright white. So I thought the contrast between the top being stained and the white base would be a really pretty piece. I'm just going to start at the bottom and work my way up. This piece is going to take 2 coats since it is white. I've never had white cover in 1 coat, so I'm just going to put a fairly thin coat on at first. So it will look really streaky, but once I get my second coat on, it'll turn out really well. Now after I painted that lip in between the top and the bottom of this base, I wish I hadn't have painted that. I really afterwards wanted to leave that and stain that piece as well, but I'd already painted it, so I ended up just leaving it white. And this Dixie Belle paint is pretty thick, so you can always spritz it with water to thin it out a little bit. I try not to do that on the first coat because I want it to go on really well, but it does tend to leave brush marks, which in between coats I will go back and sand those out a little bit before I put my second coat on. So while that's drying, I do put my brush in a little baggie rather than clean it out. But now I'm going to move to the drawers. I have taped the front facing of that drawer off so I don't get any of the white paint on it, and I'm just going to paint around the edges. Here's a look at the drawers once I finish painting them. So now I'm going to take polyacrylic spray and spray everything down and give it a good top coat. Now I did put about 3 coats of this on, and I did go in and sand down each one before. So here's a look at the before and after. Let me know what you think in the comments below how this turned out. I really love the stain with the white, but let me know what you think. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day weekend, and don't forget what Memorial Day is really about.